Over the last year and a bit, I've been diving deep into the lore of the Long Dark. While there is so much to explore in this game when it comes to the lore, there is nothing that is quite as fully fleshed out as the Tales trilogy. With the release of Last Horizon, it's really exciting to see Hinterland finally complete a storyline. While technically Wintermute has 4 standalone narrative episodes, the Wintermute storyline is incomplete. The Tales trilogy is complete, and I want to share my criticism and final thoughts on the experience. Before I continue, please make sure to comment, like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so I can keep making videos like this. To start things off, I want to talk about 3 different topics, which include the quality of the narrative, the gameplay experience of the narrative, and the changes I would love to see for future narrative experiences like the Tales trilogy. Let me start with the quality of the narrative. I think for this, I have to give the writers at Hinterland a round of applause. I don't know how many writers there are, but they did an amazing job with the Tales narrative. While the first 3/4 of Signal Void was a little slow, the build up to the end of Signal Void was absolutely worth it. What started as a somewhat interesting mystery turned into a sci-fi horror story equipped with an unknown illness and a mad scientist on the loose. Buried Echoes is hands down the best narrative experience out of all the Tales and all of Wintermute. It kept me on the edge of my seat the entire time. The part where you reached the machine, touched it, fainted, and awakened to hear Rudiger's pre-recorded message was the narrative peak for the entire game. There is no other narrative moment that is just as compelling. Of course, the ending brought a depressing and satisfying end to the tale. Last Horizon did a lot to evolve our understanding of Rudiger, bringing to light his true ambitions. It revealed that he was not the mad scientist we thought he was. The previous tales twisted our perspective on him. His machine was not built for evil, and the results of which he could not predict. This failure cost him everything, something he regretted to the very end. I think Hinterland nailed it with the Tales, which brought forth a pre-apocalyptic story into a post-apocalyptic world. The implications for the story behind the Tales are far-reaching, which is something that I've explored in my recent lore videos. Next, I want to talk about the gameplay experience of the narrative. This is the part of the Tales that I have criticism for both positive and negative aspects. Let's start with the positive. The decision to have non-diegetic narrated notes to not only hear the story being told, but also listen to the characters and their emotions made it easier to follow along. Reading it on your own leaves out some of the emotional and human aspects behind the words. Non-diegetic means that only we, the audience, can hear it, but the player character most certainly isn't hearing it. An example of this would be the soundtrack music playing as you play. It is only audible to you and helps to elevate the gameplay experience. Next, I have to mention the way that Buried Echoes and most of Last Horizon were designed. These tales, for the most part, were designed into a single world space, with the exception of the finale for Last Horizon. I think this is what makes Buried Echoes the perfect narrative experience with near perfect gameplay. It was all in one single world space with no backtracking, no region hopping, and no long distance traveling. Moving on to the negatives, this is what makes Signal Void difficult to want to replay. In order to complete it, you have to travel through 8 different regions. The Long Dark is a slow-paced survival game, having to travel so far to make progress on Signal Void while also trying to survive everything the game throws at you makes it harder to want to replay it. Last Horizon suffers a little from this because the finale requires you to backtrack to a previously explored location 1 region over. The extreme temperatures of the Sundered Pass also doesn't help, especially at the high peak before the Last Horizon finale. The final thing I want to talk about, which is the thing about the Tales that I cannot stand, is the requirement of an active radio to complete certain tasks. When playing through Last Horizon, there are 2 steps that require an aurora or a glimmer fog. For both of those steps, I spent an unbearable amount of time waiting for either event to happen. I spent about 1 in-game week waiting to get the 3rd step in the tale completed. This almost made me break something from rage. I have patience while playing this game. You have to have patience as it is a slow-paced experience, but sitting in a house for a whole week waiting for an aurora or glimmer fog just to remove the snow covering a buried cellar door of a destroyed house is ridiculous. The same goes for all the bunkers and various buried caches across all the Tales. This is truly the worst part of the Tales and nearly soured my experience with Last Horizon. If it wasn't for such an amazing second half of the tale, I would not be so kind in this video with the criticism. Last, I want to talk about changes that I would love to see when it comes to narrative experiences like this. If Hinterland were to make something similar to this in the Long Dark or any new game in the future, these are things I would love to see changed from the Tales experience. First, once you have completed a part of the narrative, it is unlocked on all future playthroughs or save files, especially for content that locks places down, including large chunks of regions. Just unlock it. They already did this by not requiring Tales to be replayed on new save files, but Hinterland really needed to go a step further. I think the radio requirement is fine the first time around, but it shouldn't be necessary after the first completion. I shouldn't have to sit still for 7 in-game days waiting for an Aurora or Glimmer Fog. I know this is an extreme case, but requiring a specific event to occur while playing a survival game is both annoying and deadly. Without a meaningful change to the Aurora Glimmer Fog mechanic, especially in places where they are required, things need to be fully unlocked after the respective tale is complete. Next, I think that Buried Echoes set the standard for this type of experience. It was all built into one region and didn't require backtracking. I understand that this wouldn't work with Signal Void, but that is the primary reason I dread replaying it. Building these narrative experiences into one place is ideal, but I understand if it doesn't work for everything. Last Horizon did require backtracking to Omega Bunker for the finale, which I think was fine considering the rest of the tale was structured like Buried Echoes, and the finale was perfect narratively speaking. Last, I think the quest tab needs an overhaul. I will often see people asking for help on how to progress through the tale. I honestly think most people don't know there is a quest tab. I mean, it's right there, but for some reason a lot of people miss it entirely. Considering the Tales trilogy was so reliant on the radio, I think having a text prompt while holding it should allow the player to open the quest tab directly. Also, the quest tab should automatically open when picking up the radio for the first time. This way, the player is immediately introduced and made aware there is a tab dedicated to the tale and their progress. Overall, the experience that the Tales offer was amazing. Especially as someone that loves the game lore, the best part of these tales is how important they are for the overall story of the game. This pre-apocalyptic tragedy has such a profound effect on Great Bear Island both before and after the start of the Quiet Apocalypse. If you want to know what I'm talking about, check out the video on screen. It will be linked on the top right of the screen and in the description. Despite the tales offering an excellent narrative, there were a few gameplay mechanics that I would love to see changed. If Hinterland ever offered another experience like this, I hope they understand how perfect Buried Echoes was. It should set the standard for future narrative experiences like the tales. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to comment, like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so I can keep making them.